Okay. Close that. Hello. Welcome. I'm Rachel, and this is my book club. Welcome to the book club. It's a vampire one. It is unnamed, and the phone in which the ideas of names is the one I'm using for a webcam currently. I'm an idiot. One day I'm gonna write them down somewhere else. Unnamed Vampire Book Club, welcome. We just last week finished our short story book, Vampires. So, and a lot of those streams are still up if you want to go and listen to some of them. But I figured we would do something a little fun this week and kind of have like a between books kind of stream. And because I'm a big nerd, a big vampire nerd, I have a bunch of like little things we could do. One of which is, from the title, you probably are realizing, is about analyzing Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Okay, I am not very good at school, but I did for a little while intend to go to college to study literature. I like analyzing literature. It's really interesting, and honestly, just analyzing media in general. So one day while I was scrolling through my life, just general being a nerd online, I found this old literary journal for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I believe it's called Slayage, and I should have brought up like a Wikipedia page before I started. Buffy literary journal. Let's see if there's a of course the camera is directly in the way. There's a Buffyverse wiki on it. Hello, welcome to my forehead. Let me move this over and read it. Slayage, the Journal of Whedon Studies, is an unofficial nonfiction periodic on Buffy studies. Edited by David Lavery and Rhonda V. Wilcox, it was first published in January 2001. It was created in January of 2001 after Lavery and Wilcox considered over 140 proposals submitted for possible inclusion in Fighting the Forces, What's at Stake in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. They learned also that 2 other collections of essays on Buffy were in the works. They discovered that there existed a not soon-to-be exhausted international critical and scholarly interest in the series. Yeah, so one day I just went looking for all of the journals because they were all published online, and I downloaded the PDFs from the Wayback Machine, and I thought it would be kind of cool to read a couple of them every time we're like in between books, assuming people don't unsubscribe and block me because I'm doing this. I'm really excited. I'm gonna have fun with this, even if you don't. I love this nerd shit. And I know it's not like vampire content. It's vampire adjacent. I hope you forgive me for not being perfect. Okay. I separated them by page length. There's quite a few that are over 20 pages. But a couple, like the majority, I forget what the mathematical term is, the median is like 10 to 15. I thought we could read at least 1 or 2 of these. I'm saying the same thing over and over, my bad. I'm trying to be clear, but I just say the same thing over, don't I? Okay. Let's see how this goes. This one is 13 pages. By Angie Burns. Passion, Pain, and Bad Kissing Decisions. Learning about intimate relationships from Buffy Season 6. God, I'm a nerd. This is fun. Okay. This one's kind of long, though. Well, hopefully a lot of it is just, 2-ish pages are works cited. Oh God. Okay, let's go. Anya, next thing you know, I'm changing to please him, a little more upset. I care if he cares. Spike, nodding, right. Anya, and I'm off my guard. Happy, I'm singing in the shower and doing my sexy dance. Entropy, season 6, episode 18. Many feminists have been critical of both romantic love and marriage because romantic love narratives can be seen to obscure power differences between men and women. I'm wondering all the people who got to this sentence and went, I'm out. I don't want to talk about feminism. Completely fair. Whatever. I'm in it for the long haul. Let's go. I have to be careful of this candle, though. Not used to it being there. Okay. Heterosexual marriage arrangements were traditionally economic and patriarchal in that they gave men cheap access to women's domestic labor and sexual services while women gained a breadwinner. Love was an ideological concept which disguised this inequality. The woman was grateful to be in a relationship because she needed a man in order to have status, but she had nevertheless been duped into domestic servitude rather than happy ever afterness. Where such extreme material inequality has diminished, psychological gender differences are now taken to lead to normal gendered behavior in heterosexual relationships. Women are expected to be the emotional specialists, while men are assumed more likely to be emotionally inexpressive or emotionally illiterate, and so should not be expected to reciprocate. Women are expected to want love and men's sex. These gender differences are commonly taken to be natural and irrefutable, and as such, they impinge on our ability to have equitable relationships. As a critical feminist psychologist, I have previously conducted research into intimate heterosexual relationships by analyzing how people talk about love and intimacy. I found participants often reproduced gendered versions of love stories. Romance was constructed as more important to women, partly to function as a reason for sex, but my women participants constructed themselves as reflexive and ironic romantics rather than romantic, sexually exploited dupes. The research... Yes, Medusa. I'm trying to read about feminism in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You're in the way. Thank you. She sniffed the candle and went, no, I'm out. The research demonstrated how difficult it was for women participants to tell stories of love without drawing on constructions of women's emotionality and men's emotional inexpressivity and difficulty with love and commitment. Men's stories tend to construct men as rational but able to do relationships, though women's emotionality could be a problem. In complex ways, both sorts of stories privileged men's position and intimate heterosexual relationships. There is already an extensive body of critical feminist work around romantic fiction and film, a bunch of sources, and on self-help literature, a couple sources. There is increasing interest, too, in critically deconstructing science fiction and other fantasy genres in terms of gender relationships and romance. This seems important as many young people eschew explicitly romantic fiction, finding it silly and girly, but encounter and engage with fictional romantic themes in science fiction films, like the Star Wars films, The Terminator, Blade Runner, and The Matrix, and in fantasy TV series such as different Star Trek, Incarnations, and Babylon 5. Buffy the Vampire Slayer has been especially concerned with the relationships of its largely young, 16 to 20-ish protagonists, their intimate sexual relationships, their friendships, and their family relationships. The extensive academic, cross-disciplinary literature devoted to Buffy, which includes its own online international academic journal, Slayage, as well as a text on Buffy speak or Slayer slang, attests to its academic relevance. Its active fan base also shows how well it speaks to their interests. Those are some thick paragraphs. Inherent in science fiction and fantasy texts is an attempt to subvert, to go beyond or challenge the current state of the world. Yet, like all texts, they inevitably engage with current social relations through the discursive means they employ. This is because we have no direct access to the meanings of a text. We have to make sense of it, and we do this in part by recognizing what already makes sense to us. Experiences, whether fictional or real life, may defy closure and definition, seeming to take form only when ways become available to speak them. This is how life experience becomes real. For fictions and stories to be intelligible, they have to be narrativized in some recognizable ways. So the deconstruction of a story of fiction may identify familiar narratives to a real-life story. For example, the construction of the romantic epiphany, as desired by a fictional Bridget Jones, was much in evidence in my previous research, since women participants' stories contained recurrent descriptions of suddenly realizing they were in love. So-called truths are embedded in narratives and how stories are told, as well in the actions and characters talked about. In analyzing or deconstructing texts, the analyst's intention is not to tie down meaning, but to open it up to question and explore contradictions, for in contradictions we can trace the juxtaposition of competing discourses and assumptions about the world. Love and desire have been a driving force behind major plot lines in BTVS. In watching the first seasons, it seemed that Buffy and Angel's mutual love, and whether it could ever transcend the problems they had, would be a key backdrop for Buffy. Who would have thought when Spike arrived in Sunnydale in School Hard, 2003, that Buffy would ever be in an intimate sexual relationship with him without the intervention of a spell, as in Something Blue, Season 4, Episode 9. Love stories are often our mundane tragedies, and a happy relationship is not something we alone can bring into being. So for an engagement with the difficulties of relationships, we might turn to BTVS. However, the writers warned us early on in Season 1 that Buffy, Willow, and Xander would struggle when it came to intimate relationships. At the end of I, Robot, You, Jane, Season 1, Episode 8, Buffy says, "Let's face it, none of us are ever gonna have a happy, normal relationship." Supported by Xander's, "We're doomed," and Willow's, "Yeah." But the struggle for happy, intimate relationships is part of what makes romantic love stories romantic. BTVS is open to multiple readings. Buffy can be seen as a feminist. Identifying discursive themes in BTVS can point up some of the psychological identifications made available to viewers. This doesn't mean they'll take them up, as Allison Light has suggested. Reading our Barbara Cartland novel might turn a reader towards feminism rather than romance at its most banal. We are bombarded with self-help books on intimate relationships. The knowledges about intimacy available in BTVS might cut through what is categorical, ponderous, or didactic elsewhere to address important issues in ways which are funny, touching, serious, and ultimately real. And one of the things which makes BTVS so entertaining and engaging is its clever, referential, and surprising use of language and meta-language. This is what really hooked me as a fan. For instance, Spike, "You're a tease. You know that, Slayer? Get a fellow's motor revving. Get the tension, let the tension marinate a couple of days, then bam, crown yourself the Ice Queen." Buffy, I need a few more metaphors for that little mix. Smashed, Season 6, Episode 9. I feel bad for not saying it in a British accent, but also you don't want me to do that accent. I hope to add something distinctive to the fascinating array of already available analyses of relationships and sexuality in BTVS. The following analysis of intimate relationships in BTVS focuses on Season 6. I'm a critical feminist psychologist using discourse analytic techniques. As a discourse analyst, I focus in detail on the language used in the 22 episodes. I am not seeking the gist of what is said, but am analyzing the words in detail in order to explicate what the words are doing. in terms of reproducing knowledge about relationships. As well as rewatching the episodes, I read and reread the scripts and organized together all those parts which related to intimate relationships, love, romance, and sex. I studied these parts, still focusing on the language in detail, in order to identify how relationships and identities were discursively constructed as normal or suitable or otherwise. I also examined in what ways the relationship experiences were storied, being attentive to issues of gender, power, abuse, and attempts at control. This allowed me to identify assumptions underlying intimate relationships in Buffy Season 6 and question how these related to commonly accepted expectations of intimate relationships. This sort of analysis is based on the understanding that there are no knowable universal truths about psychological phenomena like love or sexual desire, and that identity is unstable and negotiated rather than fixed. It's not a bug on you, is it? No. Any apparent orderliness of intimate relationships is reinforced by its pervasive rearticulation. For instance, the notion that women want love and men want sex is taken to be true, and people act as if it is true as a result of its being so articulated or claimed. BTVS reinforced this when Angel's moment of true happiness was having sex with Buffy, as well as drawing on another truism that claims men change after women have had sex with them. I want to further discuss BTVS by highlighting the difficulty of creating potentially new discourses of relationships without reproducing stereotypic evocations of proper behavior, often gendered behavior. In doing this, I am alert to my potential position as the producer of yet another translation of the material. Although I'm focusing on Season 6, it is difficult not to make links to other seasons. I try to do this only if it illuminates the analysis of Season 6. I've had to be very selective, as anyone else who is working with this material knows. There is just so much that could be done. Any analysis is ongoing and partial. I focused more on heterosexual relationships than gay or lesbian, for brevity and to be more able to relate the analytic themes to previous research on the relationships between gender, power, love, and romance. Also, unlike some other Buffy academics, I'm not attempting to differentiate between vampires and humans. I take the characters to be gendered and understand monstrousness to be constructed through language, not invested unequivocally in a fixed monster or non-monster identity. Bad kissing decisions, bad girls. For girls and women, sex should not be just sex, but must mean something. Despite Joss Whedon's creation of Buffy as a kick-ass heroine and the narrativization of heterosexual relationships, there is an underlying assumption that for girls and women, sex should not be just sex. Unless there is also some emotional or psychological connection to their lovers, we see women torturing themselves or being castigated. So for Buffy, her sexual relationship with Spike, putting aside the obvious problems of his being a vampire with a chip that no longer keeps him from hurting her, is a problem. The alternative is that there are problems with her, something she tells Tara at the end of Dead Things, Season 6, Episode 13. Buffy, I promise there's nothing wrong with you. Buffy, there has to be. This can't just be me. It isn't me. Why do I feel like this? Why do I let Spike do those things to me? Dead Things, Season 6, Episode 13. The construction of Spike as the dominant lover and their sexual encounters is at odds with the physical sex acts we have seen or heard enacted or implied thus far in Season 6. As viewers or analysts, we might understand this as Buffy projecting her bad feelings onto Spike. However, Buffy, to Tara, positions herself as victim or addict. Buffy, why can't I stop? Why do I keep letting him in? Tara, do you love him? Tara, it's okay if you do. He's done a lot of good and he loves you. And Buffy, it's okay if you don't. You're going through a really hard time in your Buffy, still tearful, what, using him? What's okay with that? Tara, it's not that simple. Buffy, it is. It's wrong. I'm wrong. Tell me that I'm wrong, please. And then the same episode. The first reason Tara offers is that Buffy might love Spike, linking love and sex as is usual for women, good women, that is. However, Tara is careful to dismiss this as necessary, offering an alternative to Buffy, that she has had a hard time and so is vulnerable. Having sex because you're feeling bad is made understandable elsewhere in season 6. Buffy tells Spike that her bad kissing decisions, kissing Spike, happened because she was upset that Giles was leaving. Is it Giles or Giles? Oh god, I don't remember. It's been so long since I've watched an episode. Real quick, just gonna YouTube Giles. Oh god. Oh no, he turned my keyboard off. I think it's Giles. It probably isn't. He's probably not gonna say his name over and over again. He turned the sound off. It doesn't matter. Ignore me. We're just gonna say Giles. It's fine. Oh god. Okay, because he's leaving. Anya explains to Xander, her ex, why she had sex with Spike in the magic shop. It was just a thing. I felt bad and he was just there. Entropy. 6:18. And Buffy says to Xander, she loves you. You know that. Anya was she was hurting. She was hurting and she did this really stupid thing, seeing red. 6:19. These examples, among others, suggest women need psychological motivations for sex. Buffy ends her relationship with Spike. It's over in As You Were 6:15. Buffy, I do want you. I'm using you. I can't love you. I'm just being weak and selfish. Really not complaining here. And it's killing me. What we read here is that it is not acceptable for Buffy to continue to have sex with Spike when she can't love him or wants no more than sex with him. His response that he doesn't mind, really not complaining here, evokes the stereotypic view that men are always up for sex. It's Buffy who can't cope with using him. It's killing me. Nice girls don't do this, as their sexuality should be bound by romance. But if it's not acceptable for women to use men, the reverse is much less clear. I'm gonna make you feel it. Forced sex is not okay, but heterosexual men may not realize this. Season 6 addresses attempted rape in different ways. Both excerpts I use here make clear that attempted rape is wrong and will produce pain and other bad effects for both victim and perpetrator. And this theme continues into Season 7. There is no sense that BTVS condones such actions. The attempted rape plots also demonstrate the potential for men to come to understand what they have done. But unfortunately, this gives credence to the myth that they did not know what they were doing. It allows the denial of a problem with forcing sex on a woman and with little recognition or distorted understanding of her rights and ability to state what she wants and doesn't want. Spike's attempted rape of Buffy has been taken by some commentators as demonstrating his monstrousness, but as Simons has pointed out, the attempted rape is not done with his vamp face, but with his human face. The rape scene can be seen to have its roots in traditional romantic love narratives which link violence and love. Male jealousy and his going too far or being unable to control himself may be taken to indicate the male protagonist's strong desire and love for the heroine, either together with or in the absence of any declaration of it. In the absence of clear indications of his love, any of his behavior may be interpreted to mean his repressed love and desire. In Tabula Rasa 6:8, Spike had evoked Gone with the Wind. We kissed, you and me, all gone with the wind, with the rising music. This could be seen to foreshadow rape, Rhett Butler style. But Buffy wasn't going to be Scarlett O'Hara, and it is not the 1930s. I don't know anything about Gone with the Wind. Was there a rape scene in Gone with the Wind, you guys? You guys, someone tell me if there's a rape scene in Gone with the Wind. I you can still see my candle. Let's take a moment to pet our cat and try to compartmentalize all the sexual assault words being thrown around. Yes, Medusa on my lap. Okay. In Seeing Red 619, Spike has good reason to believe that Buffy was upset he had sex with Anya, as Dawn has told him so. But you did what you did last night. If you wanted to hurt Buffy, congratulations, it worked. What seems key in the attempted rape is Spike's reiteration and insistence that Buffy feels something and that forcing sex on her will make her realize this. But he has this and her wrong. From his "Buffy, my God, I didn't," and his horrified facial expression, according to transcribers, we know he knows it. Buffy has clearly denied the link between love and forced sex, and Spike has to accept this. Spike whispers, "Let yourself feel it." He moves forward, puts his hand on her waist, pulls her toward him. Buffy, no. Spike, you love me. Buffy, ow, no, stop it. Buffy, please don't do this. Spike, I'm gonna make you feel it. I hate reading this. Buffy, ask me again why I could never love you. Spike looks like he's just realizing what he was doing. Spike, Buffy, my God, I didn't. Buffy, angrily, because I stopped you. Quieter. Something I should have done a long time ago. A tear runs down Buffy's face. Spike stares at her, looking horrified. Seeing Red 619. In Dead Things 613, Warren has abducted his ex-girlfriend, Katrina, so that he and his geek partners, Andrew and Jonathan, have a sex slave. The trio had devised a cerebral dampener to control a woman, any woman they find attractive enough. This extract follows the influence of the dampener wearing off. Katrina, you bunch of little boys playing at being men, yelling, well, this is not some fantasy. It's not a game, you freaks. It's rape. Jonathan, stunned. What? Andrew, no, we didn't. Katrina, crying and still angry. You're all sick, and I'm going to make sure you get locked up for this, and then we'll see how you liked getting raped. Cool. Buffy allows viewers to question such behavior to see that attempts to control and force sex is a problem. It names rape. However, these depictions of attempted rape seem to also reinforce gender stereotypes around sex, desire, and control. As Willow said in Beer Bad for season 4, episode 5, I mean, you men, it's all about the sex. You find a woman, drag her to your den, do whatever's necessary, just as long as you get the sex. I tell you, men haven't changed since the dawn of time. Men want compliant women, robots and sex slaves. Despite the naming and problematizing of rape, the way in which Katrina and other women are positioned for men's use is of concern. Under the influence of the cerebral dampener, Katrina has dressed in a frilly black and white French maid's outfit, the stereotypic image of someone who looks after men's needs. She is addressing Warren, Jonathan, and Andrew as master. Warren, she's mine, but don't worry, you can play with her all you want after I'm done with her. Dead Things 613. I should have filled up my glass more before I started. In the context of BTVS, we are expected to know that the geek trio are poor examples of men. Warren seems irredeemable. What is also made understandable is that men will go to many lengths to have a sexually compliant woman, including using technology to build robots, April and the Buffy bot, and turn women into passive sex objects. Though Spike may complain that Buffy has made him fall in love with her and turned him into her sodden sex slave. Normal again, 617. This was not intended by her. And as a previous extract suggests, he's mostly not complaining about the sex slave part. Treating women as sexual commodities is not presented as exceptionally dysfunctional or reprehensible, but as part of what may be expected of men. Issues about the relative power of women and men are raised explicitly, though subtly and funnily, in Hell's Bells 616. For example, when Anya practices her marriage vows. I, Anya, promise to love you, to cherish you, to honor you, but not to obey you, of course, because that's anachronistic and misogynistic. And who do you think you are, like a sea captain or something? Yet Anya, the straight-talking voice of rampant individualism and vengeance for women, struggles to have emancipatory discourse. I promise to have sex with you whenever I want, and pledge to be your friend and your wife and your confidant and your sex poodle. Hell's Bells 6:16. Tara questions whether Anya should say sex poodle in her vows, even in the context of romance and marriage. Is this bringing sexuality, especially women's sexuality, too much to the fore and challenging Anya's apparent sexual submission? Despite Sanders' position as a not particularly dominant male, he is still constructed as a male who fears commitment. He is given dominant male credentials when Anya is seen to have to nag him about his reluctance to be open about their relationship and to get married. She also positions herself as having changed to please him. Good Lord, I never got this far in the story. Did he actually give her a shut-up ring? Anya, next thing you know, I'm changing to please him. A little more upset. I care if he cares. Spike, nodding. Right. Anya, and I'm off my guard. I'm happy. I'm singing in the shower and doing my sexy dance. Entropy, 6:18. The themes I've suggested so far suggest that gender stereotypes around sex, desire, and power, though questioned and sometimes made explicit, are still also reproduced. Thus, Buffy inevitably fails to avoid partly reinforcing gender stereotypes around sex and control. This points up the pervasiveness and dominance of these stereotypes and the difficulty of creating relationships which move beyond them in both fiction and real life. Love's a funny thing. In my previous research, in which I undertook and analyzed interviews with women and men about their intimate relationships, it was the powerfulness and weirdness of their feelings, which were claimed by women as evidence of knowing they must be in love. This is part of the common romantic discourse of love, and it is similarly employed in BTVS for both women and men. Love's a funny thing, says Clem in Seeing Red, 6:19. Reprising what was said previously by Spike in Lover's Walk, Season 3, Episode 8. Love also makes you do the wacky, as Willow and Buffy both say in Some Assembly Required, Season 2, Episode 2. What is clear in Buffy is that love is neither simple nor straightforward, no matter how great the sparkage between characters, and viewers are not subjected to the idea that you can or should do anything for love. At the end of Season 2, after mutual I love yous, Buffy had to kill Angel, becoming Part 2, Season 2, Episode 22. In Season 6, Tara won't stay with Willow after she has manipulated her and her memories once too often. The romance in Buffy is in part gothic, in that it is driven by powerful emotions, and the more difficult the obstacles to the romance, the more dramatic and romantic the love story that may be told, something also demonstrated in real-life love stories. So a relationship between a vampire slayer and vampire is going to be a serious contender for a dramatic romantic story. In the love narratives, we find pain and pleasure, ups and downs, very dramatic downs. Angel becomes Angelus. I don't remember how to say it. Tara has her brains sucked out. Oz is a werewolf, and often the men just leave. Victoria's Spa has delineated the ways in which Spike can be seen, in part, to be carrying on the tradition of courtly love, attempting a torturous quest with some potential for transformation. But where this traditional romance narrative, in part, holds out the possibility of a future happy ever after for any couple in love, Buffy and Spike don't seem like a long-term prospect. It is only the most romantic of viewers who can see a future happy ever after for the big bad in Buffy. However, it is often Spike who is shown as knowledgeable about love and seduction. Take, for instance, his comments on Parker's strategy with Buffy. Did he play the sensitive lad and get you to seduce him? That's a good trick if the girl's thick enough to buy it. The harsh light of day, Season 4, Episode 3. Passionate love in Buffy the Vampire Slayer is constructed as fragile and temporary, which, in part, reproduces the passionate love / companionate love binary of mainstream psychology. Companionate? I've learned a new word. Buffy, I have feelings for you. I do, but it's not love. I could never trust you enough for it to be love. Spike laughing. Trust is for old marrieds, Buffy. Buffy rolling her eyes. Great love is wild and passionate and dangerous. It burns and consumes. Buffy, until there's nothing left. Love like that doesn't last. Seeing Red 6:19. A name I can't say. Good Lord. Dahafrin? Hymen's greetings. What? Dahafrin, Hymen, the god of matrimony. His salutations upon you. May the love we celebrate today avoid an almost inevitable decline. Hell's Bells 6:16. Viewers of BTVS are given contradictory and partial meanings of love, which allow an active engagement in understanding it. The relationship between Buffy and Spike has led to intense online argument about its suitability. We can question how we know Spike loves Buffy. He has counted the days, 147, she was dead, and has proved himself in many ways, while also doing what cannot be commensurate with love and trying to hold on to his big bad persona. We are also reminded by Tara, the most level-headed and supportive Scooby, that relationships are about work and trust, a long and important process. But, even for her, passion and feeling may take precedence. Tara to Willow about getting back together. There's just so much to work through. Trust has to be built again on both sides. You have to learn if we're even the same people we were, if you can fit in each other's lives. It's a long, important process. And can we just skip it? Can you just be kissing me now? Enter P618. BTVS also demonstrates that love hurts. Love hurts. You always hurt the one you love. Anya, and I have seen what love could do to people, and it was hurt and sadness. Alone was better. And then suddenly there was you, and you knew me, you saw me, and it was this thing. You make me feel safe and warm. Anya, so I get it now. I finally get love, Xander. I really do. Hell's Bells 6:16. Haven't taken so long to get it, to feel love. Anya is going to be very hurt. You always hurt, the one you love, pet. Dead Things 6:13. Breaking up is shown to be hard to do, and it will hurt. We also see that people survive, and unless they have special powers, they won't end up almost destroying the world. A good deal of breakup heartache is articulated in Buffy by using music with pertinent lyrics rather than dialogue. We hear Michelle Branch's Goodbye to You when, at the end of Tabula Rasa 6:8, Tara leaves Willow because she has abused her trust yet again, not because she no longer loves her. I want you, but I'm not giving in this time. Goodbye to you. So love in Buffy does not mean having to give in to your partner or put up with being manipulated, a good feminist sentiment. A common expectation found in my previous research on real relationships was that women anticipated being left by men rather than the reverse. This expectation meant that women doubted whether their men would stick around in the future, and men constructed themselves as less tied to relationships than women. This privileges men in relationships, giving them more of a choice about staying or not. In Buffy, too, women seem more likely to be left by men than they are to leave. In major breakups in earlier seasons, Buffy and Willow are left by men. Buffy is left by Angel and later by Riley, Willow by Oz, though we are supposed to allow that Angel and Oz leave because they care about Buffy and Willow and want to protect them, whether or not Buffy and Willow wanted this. The decision was taken from them. Women in Buffy are shown as very vulnerable to breakup heartache. Anya, left at the altar, Hell's Bells 6:16, learning she was left at the altar, good God, is positioned as very damaged by being abandoned by Xander. Xander, was she looking for me? Willow fidgeting, before she left, did she say anything? Willow, you mean between sobs? Xander looking guilty. There was mostly just wheezing. Buffy, she was kind of broken. Normal again, 6:17. Later to Spike about the non-wedding. Buffy, it was awful, sits nearby. Anya was devastated. Normal again, 6:17. Yet, despite being left, they survive. Friendships last, unlike sexually intimate relationships. The will they, won't theys of intimate relationships often drive plot lines, and the obstacles put in the path of true love are part of the drama expected. But Buffy has not been afraid to end intimate relationships, an occupational hazard as actors leave. Though intimate relationships have always been important in the series, it has been the friendship of Buffy, Willow, and Xander, with the support of Giles, Anya, Tara, Spike, Angel, and Dawn at different times, that has been the solid central ground. When Willow goes bad, very bad indeed, it is their friend Xander and their friendship which saves the day and brings her and the world back from the brink. BTVS does not offer us examples of a romantic happily ever after. There are few older adult characters in general, and among them there is an absence of happy adult relationships. Buffy's parents are divorced and are only seen together in Buffy's psychotic outer world and Normal Again 6:17. Giles is mostly single through the series, his most significant intimate relationship with Jenny Calendar doomed from the outset. Riley and his wife may be happy, we'll never know. Xander and Anya's faked future together was unhappy, mirroring his parents' marriage. We see and hear Xander's parents and their full unhappiness in Hell's Bells 6:16 when his father verbally attacks his mother. Good God, this is depressing. Mr. Harris, and to my wife Jessica, where are you, honey? Mr. Harris, there she is, raising glass. To my wife, what would I do without you, beautiful? Mrs. Harris looks a bit surprised, smiles. Mr. Harris, well, for starters, I probably wouldn't need to drink so much, would I? Mrs. Harris looks hurt. The other guests look uncomfortable. Mr. Harris, on the brighter side, marriage has probably saved me from a nasty dose of the clap, chuckles. Here's to ya, drinks. So Buffy Season 6 is not promoting a happy ever after wonderland, with or without marriage, but life is seen to go on. My analysis has shown how assumptions about gender, gendered behavior, and emotion are difficult to avoid, even in a show where the two strongest characters are women, Buffy and Willow. Their strength does not protect them from heartache, but they are not going to be romantic dupes, as Buffy is not promoting the need for women to be in a relationship. As in soap operas, a consistent lesson about intimate relationships in Buffy Season 6 and other seasons is that relationships are fragile and that they can and do change. They change as we change, they change as our situations change, and they change whether or not we want them to. They change in predictable and unpredictable ways and try to control the other person. And trying to control the other person is not going to get us love. Where traditional romantic stories have tended to imply that people are somehow fickle and untrustworthy if their feelings are mutable, BTVS is much more realistic and pessimistic about the possibility of something we would call lasting love. When the world is changing around you, and in BTVS, the world can change dramatically and very quickly. Intimate relationships are contingent and often temporary, and though the end of Season 6 is held out the possibility of a romantic future for Buffy and an ensouled Spike, the series end with Spike's death made it seem ultimately doomed or unlikely, despite his rebirth on the Angel series. I'm learning so many things tonight. So many spoilers. Good God, what did I think was going to happen? Willow and Xander end the season single. This means that Buffy is showing that it is not the end of the world or even a big disaster if your relationships end and you're not in an intimate relationship. Your life and future possibilities are still there for you. Identity is unstable, and it doesn't make you a bad person if you change. You're like Buffy, like cookie dough, chosen, season 7, episode 22. And you won't ever be fully baked unless and until you believe you are. The intimate relationships in Buffy season 6 differ, however, from fictional relationships in romances and soap operas and real relationships, in that there is an absence of sexual infidelity. When Anya and Spike have sex, their relationships with Xander and Buffy are over. We are expected to see this as emotional infidelity, as infidelity to the person they are expected to still love, because they are censured for doing this. In real-life love stories, falling in love is often adulterous, as it is one common way to tell a dramatic and emotional love story. Despite the overarching notion of the fragility of relationships, infidelity is not being offered as the way out of a relationship or to traumatize love, which is unusual. In conclusion, femininity and masculinity are constructed in Season 6 in both recognizable and challenging ways. I've shown here some of the difficulties of moving beyond assumptions of gender difference in order partly to demonstrate how difficult it is to do this. Some Buffy scholars have been reflecting on and writing about feminized male characters in BTVS, and I think this is a worrying trend as it reifies and reinforces the notion of fixed feminine characteristics and reproduces the gender binary. Despite my feminist concerns about the evocation, I can do this, of gendered myths, which I've outlined in this paper, ultimately, BTVS offers us choices, not prescriptions. It allows viewers to engage with common dilemmas, presenting possibilities which may help us live our lives and experience relationships more fully. Analyzing BTVS shows how difficult it is to refute or subvert common gendered stereotypes, especially around sexuality and emotion. But BTVS's dialogic approach to intimacy, gender, sexuality, power, and emotion opens them up for discussion. For both academics and fans, this in part is what makes Buffy so important and enduringly watchable. Whew. And then work cited, which looks like they cited the slayage a couple times. Good for them. Living with a vengeance, mass-produced fantasies for women, feminism and youth culture from Jackie to just 17, ruling passions, sexual violence, reputation, and the law. Rating the Vampire Slayer, the new, updated, unofficial guide to Buffy and Angel. Okay. That was a medium, honestly one of the smaller ones. Maybe not. I'm dumb. Whatever. Good job. We read Passion, Pain, and Bad Kissing Decisions, Learning About Intimate Relationships in Buffy Season 6 by Angie Burns. If you are Angie Burns, cool article. Why are you here? On this stream specifically, but thank you for being here. Okay. Let's pet a cat for a second. With all the words in my brain, I don't know how to finish that sentence. Good Lord. Commentary? No, that's empty. Just one little bird. Okay. Lee Clements. Real vampires don't wear shorts. The aesthetics of fashion in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. One of the most popular aspects of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, BTVS, was its look, especially the fashion sense displayed by the central character. Yet clothing was an iconographic statement for all the characters on the show. Shifts in clothing provide ways to track the growth and development of each of the Scoobies over the course of the 7 seasons. While Willow's transformation from the girl in the Peter Pan collars, Welcome to the Hellmouth, Season 1, Episode 1, and to scary veiny Willow, Graves, Season 2, Episode 22, is the most obvious manifestation, changes in clothing on the show marked not only shifts in fashion trends, but also the new roles in which characters found themselves as the show went by. Other characters, such as Giles and Joyce, changed little over the 7 seasons. This isn't as much about vampires, I assume. The other one at least talked about Spike. Whatever. We're just accepting that it's not completely about vampires and continuing. Other characters, such as Giles and Joyce, changed little over the 7 seasons, providing a visual reinforcement of their status as father and mother figures to the Scoobies. Fashion also served to demarcate good characters from bad ones, not only in the sense of evil, but also in the sense of ineptitude, as with vampire Harmony's obliviousness to the need to look evil in order to truly be evil once she turns. The recent works of fashion philosophers such as Joanne Entwistle, Diana Crane, and Fred Davis explore the idea of a fashion aesthetic, or the sense of identity gained from clothing, and how it affects everyday social interactions, as well as society's perceptions of media figures. Applying these theories to the changes in fashion trends, I will discuss how fashion was established as an aesthetic on the show, namely by pitting the not-so-fashionable vampires against Buffy's fashion sense. Then I propose to do a reading of the major looks in fashion aesthetics using the characters in BTVS, such as Buffy's change from rebellious daughter to mother figure, and Willow's transformation from computer geek to powerful light/dark witch. The fashion shifts range from the subtle to the overwhelming, yet each case documents not only a new development in the character's story arc, but also a change in the aesthetics of the show itself. While the study of fashion is not a new trend, it is only recently that scholars have moved beyond a straight semiotically based analysis to a more culturally grounded one, which accounts for shifts in tastes and trends. The result has been the development of a fashion aesthetic better equipped to explain the complexities of fashion's codes and significations, including trends, brands, identity significations, and deeper meanings. Fred Davis asserts that the clothing fashion code much more nearly approximates an aesthetic code than it does the conventional sign codes. He bases this assertion on a 1976 statement by semiotician Jonathan Cooler, who wrote, "Aesthetic expression aims to communicate notions, subtleties, and complexities which have not yet been formulated, and therefore, as soon as an aesthetic code comes to be generally perceived as a code, works tend to move beyond it." Under this rubric, a fashion aesthetic code, such as Davis advocates, deals with the fact that fashion's meanings are constantly in flux, both in terms of changes in fashion and changes in the historical perception of what fashion meant in a given time period. First, it is necessary to distinguish the idea of fashion from other terms around it, such as dress, which have other meanings. In her review of recent theories of fashion and dress, Joanne Entwistle looks at dress as the process of covering with a practical and aesthetic function. Fashion, then, is a historically and geographically specific system for the production and organization of dress. Fred Davis, on the other hand, sees fashion as a threshold event and the reorganization of what he calls the clothing code, those code modifications that somehow manage on first viewing to startle, captivate, offend, or otherwise engage the sensibilities of some culturally preponderant public. So fashion is simultaneously a process and an event, existing both in the moment of contact and as a shifting pattern of meanings about said moment. Nonetheless, fashion scholars, however diverse their definitions of fashion, dress, and the relationship between the two, all believe that what one wears conveys a complex set of signifiers that reverberate throughout a society and over time. It must be noted that, according to fashion scholars, there is a danger in ascribing precise meanings to most clothing. Outfits shift and change their meanings over time as trends change. The very same apparel that said one thing last year will say something quite different today, and yet another thing next year. One need only look at the recent trends towards retro clothing to see that styles can be reconfigured to signify different things to different generations of wearers. It is this lack of continuity that separates fashion aesthetics from more conventional sign codes, such as linguistic ones. I consider this idea of continuity shifting to be less of a problem for discussing fashion as seen on a television show as opposed to fashion trends in real life, because the manipulation of fashion is part of the show's overall aesthetic. Characters may reflect certain clothing trends, but clothing first and foremost serves as a reinforcing agent for the character's development and change. While this may seem like a small distinction, are a character's clothing changes all that different from a young woman embracing this year's skirt length and color palette over last year's? Television characters are free to hold onto significant character clothing choices for as long as they serve to reinforce the ideas of the character within the given universe. For example, Willow can continue to wear Peter Pan collars and overalls long after a real girl her age, especially one with a friend who has as much fashion sense as Buffy, might have opted for trendier threads. Because clothing reflects the overall development of the show, the story may place a character into a sequence that falls outside of fashion trends, yet is integral to the show's story arc. My leg is tired. As, for example, Spike's development beginning in Season 4 and Dark Willow in Season 6. While BTVS's dialogue does give lip service to Buffy's control over her clothing choices from the very first episode, it must be remembered that she, like any television character, is at the mercy of the show's desired look. Her likes and dislikes are programmed as part of her character. They change only when those in charge, producer, director, costume designer, deem that change is needed. Lorna Jowett has pointed out that fans are particularly savvy to this aspect of fashion aesthetics. Fans rarely understand that there is a larger force that decides about hair and clothing shifts on the part of characters. Finally, because Buffy the Vampire Slayer is now off the air, the signifying circle is now closed. No new trends can be introduced. Only the exploration of the existing trends contained within the episodes remains. I am excluding consideration of the BTVS comic books from the discussion, as well as any clothing trends mentioned by BTVS novels, focusing instead on performative aesthetics of fashion, not literary ones. Therefore, BTVS's fashion aesthetic falls dangerously close to Kohler's border between the ambitious and the defined code. The aesthetics of fashion consists of three facets or looks. First and most obvious is the look of the trends and branding as a status symbol. The first season establishes fashion as a major aesthetic on BTVS. Buffy is portrayed as fashion conscious. In fact, in the revised core rulebook for the BTVS role-playing game, fashion is Buffy's consistent wild card. She is fashionable enough at the beginning of the pilot to merit Cordelia's attention and possible admission to the Cordettes. Much of Welcome to the Hellmouth, the pilot, centers around fashion concepts. Buffy agonizes over what to wear to the bronze. Hi, I'm an enormous slut. Hello, would you like a copy of The Watchtower? Identifies potential vampires by their lack of fashion sense, and informs Giles that one of her greatest worries upon arriving in Sunnydale High was that she would have last month's hair. As Buffy's reflection of her pre-Slayer self, Cordelia is the denizen of trendy fashion at Sunnydale High. Much of her early dialogue is devoted to promoting her own fashion aesthetic or to denigrating those who do not meet her standards. As when she tells Willow, "So glad you've discovered the softer side of Sears, and welcome to the Hellmouth." Cordelia's attachment to fashion is a constant throughout her 3 seasons on BTVS. And Out of Mind, Out of Sight, Season 1, Episode 11, Cordy announces that her May Queen gown will be specially made because off the rack gives me hives. In Reptile Boy, Season 2, Episode 5, Cordelia instructs Buffy on what not to wear to the fraternity party. Don't wear black, silk, chiffon, or spandex. Those are my trademarks. Buffy responds by wearing a little black chiffon-looking number, both asserting her own ownership of these fashion signifiers and undercutting Cordelia's attempt to dictate fashion requirements. Cordelia also resorts to designer names and power colors such as red and black following her breakup with Xander in Season 3 as an attempt to reestablish her position within the school. She further bonds with new student Anya over Harmony's snide remarks, remarking that her former friends can't tell Prada from Payless in The Wish. Season 3, Episode 9. Cordelia's ultimate fall from queendom, which paves the way for her acceptance and a redemption on Angel, occurs in The Prom, Season 3, Episode 20, when she is also forced into an off-the-rack prom dress, which Xander pays for, following her father's problems with tax evasion. What are you doing over there, Medusa? Medusa! Hey, get down. I don't like you on the counter. Get down. Thank you. This focus on fashion-conscious clothing was a choice from the outset of the series. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Watcher's Guide, Volume 1, contains a reference to the care taken by costume designer Cynthia Bergstrom in selecting the show's contemporary clothes. Bergstrom used national chains such as Barney's, Neiman Marcus, and Macy's, as well as local shops like Fred Segal, spelled incorrectly in the guide, to help keep the show's major characters hip and trendy. It's weird of thinking of Macy's as being hip and trendy. In so doing, Bergstrom was able to keep a clear focus on the show's contemporary feel, even as storylines themselves dealt with ancient demons, vampires, and occult practices. Fashion provided the bridge for the audience between the unreality of the Hellmouth and the reality of a one Starbucks California town like Sunnydale, where high school cliques still doled out stinging rebukes to those students, such as Willow and Xander, and later Buffy, who did not follow the trends. Buffy's trendy fashion sense is held in direct opposition to the lack of fashion sense found in Sunnydale's vampire population. Medusa! Hold on. You're doing something naughty. Stop it. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. Okay. Back to fashion. Vampires in BTVS are portrayed as being out of touch with current fashion or dressing in unusual ways. As Matthew Pateman has observed, the undead's dress sense is often the motor of comedy. It is also a vehicle for self-referentiality and character reinvention. The former prostitute Darla, Angel's sire, first appears in a schoolgirl uniform. Welcome to the Hellmouth. Season 1, Episode 1. Innocent and almost nun Drusilla appears as a 19th century Gothic novel heroine in What's My Line? I don't know what the little citation means. It's not an episode. No, maybe it is an episode. Season 2, Episode 9 and 10. Her outfits are complete with Georgian waistlines to Victorian high collars, depending upon the dress. I'm going to pick my cat up. Stop it. You gotta stop doing bad things, little turd. Yeah. I know. Come here. Later, she appears in a striking red gown, Becoming, Part 2, Season 2, Episode 22, and in black Gothic lace, Crush, Season 5, Episode 14. As a one with an eye to fashionable trends, Buffy is easily able to use the vampire's lack of fashion sense to spot them in public. In Welcome to the Hellmouth, Buffy identifies a vampire to Giles by the former's clothing. Only someone living underground for 10 years would think that was still the look. Like Cordelia, Buffy is also not afraid to dish out fashion commentary when appropriate, telling one particularly 1980s style vampire that you look like DeBarge. Having a sense of the importance of fashion does not necessarily translate into fashion sense itself, especially in the vampire world. Sunday, the goth vampire from The Freshman, Season 4, Episode 1, is ironic because she laments the lame fashion and music choices of her victims even as she wears a black miniskirt, leggings, neck collar, and ankle boots with her spiked hair, a classic 1980s Madonna-esque new wave look. Dating back to the supposed time of her arrival in Sunnydale, 1982. A Sunday laments that what she sees as Buffy's fashion faux pas, those jeans with the little patches, she has no one to blame but herself. She herself embodies the stereotypical dress of vampire wannabes, such as Chanterelle from Lie to Me, Season 2, Episode 7, and society in general, if one can believe the pictures on vampire clothing websites like Drake in a Box Vampire. Well, let's see if this still exists. Vampire clothing websites. Open link. Oh, God. Well. Copy. Was this ever? Yeah. Doop. Oh boy. Oh. Hello, goths. Few shopping coffin. God. These look like so low quality. No offense to the people who made them, but they always look a little too costumey, spirit Halloween-y for me to ever fully want to wear. But to be fair, we never really wear velvet without it feeling like a costume these days, right? Like, when do you go outside and you see people in a velvet dress and you go, oh yeah, everyday wear? I don't know what I'm saying. No offense to the goths. You do you. That one's cute. Is that a skirt or just a dress? It's a long dress. Women's sections. Oh, they sold all kinds of stuff. Man, I ate this shit up in this time period. I was such a wannabe baby goth. Okay, fully distracted. What were we doing? Oh. In society in general, if one can believe the pictures. Likewise, Harmony, fashion maven and one of the Cordettes, also begins to have clothing issues after she is turned. When she reappears in The Harsh Light of Day, Season 4, Episode 3, she has gone from a trendier look to trashy red-hot pants, supposedly reflecting her kinky relationship with her blondie bear, Spike. Even Spike, whose Billy Idol look is considered stylish, gets into the non-stylish act in Doomed, Season 4, Episode 11, when his laundry faux pas forces him into Xander's Hawaiian shirt and cut-off shorts. The outfit nearly drives him to suicide because he looks ridiculous, a vampire in shorts, and knows it. He once again goes under fashion cover in Tabula Rasa, Season 6, Episode 8. With the tweedy suit he wears to outwit the loan shark, the same one he wore in Restless, Season 4, Episode 22, and Xander's Dream. However, it is made clear that when Spike strays from his traditional rebel look, it is for reasons for self-protection or necessity, not due to any lack of fashion savvy. In fact, Spike's clothing is the one look that does not change at all over the course of the show. It'd be so weird if it had. The second aspect of the fashion aesthetic look concerns characters' significations. According to Davis, in all societies, clothes serve to communicate more or less standardized meanings about their wearers, but not all societies subject wearers to the periodic alterations of meaning affected by fashion. Shifts in what these characters wear signify changes in character, and viewers engage readily with these fashion aspects, making judgments about character. Buffy, for example, starts out in teen-oriented micro miniskirts, dresses, and knee-high boots in Season 1 and ends up in long, straight skirts by Season 6 and in trendy, mom-like scoop-necked pantsuits by Season 7. Damn, mom-like scoop-necked pantsuits. These changes in her dress signify her changing role from teenager to mother figure over the course of the show. From the outset of the series, Buffy's fashion aesthetic is considered to be an outgrowth of her slaying. She is to look good and kick butt. Her clothes are not a hindrance to her abilities. When they are, she makes them adapt to her, as in Flooded, Season 6, Episode 3, when she slits her fashionable long skirt so she can fight the trio's demon in the bank. However, her clothing choices do earn commentary. The Master, having killed Buffy in Prophecy Girl Season 1, Episode 12, comments, "By the way, I like your dress," referring to her white spring-fleeing gown in which she has come like a lamb to the slaughter to confront him. This is the same gown in which she later kills him, marching to the confrontation to the blaring of the show's main title, gown billowing behind her, a further indication of her clothing's adaptability. The Iron Team, Season 4, Episode 13, contains a classic Buffy fashion moment, responding to Maggie Walsh's concern that she is inappropriately attired to help search for the Polgara demon. Buffy replies that she has patrolled in this halter, a backless, spaghetti-tied orange thing, many times. Oh, that sounds cute. This moment is important because it establishes the disparity between the spit and polish initiative grunts and the unique style of the Chosen One. Clearly, Buffy's look is the one to emulate. In Season 6's As You Were, Season 6, Episode 14, the reverse is true. Buffy dons the fashionable black Kevlar suits to help Riley and his wife hunt the Doctor because, as Riley mentions, her double-meat palace uniform is hardly conducive to covert operations. Buffy's look changes after her return in third season and into fourth. According to costume designer Cynthia Bergstrom, her character is definitely stronger. She's no longer hiding who she is. She's the Slayer. She knows that she's the Slayer. Yet, fashion remains key. Bergstrom believes that the way she dresses is an outlet for her. Her look remains very fashionable, with a color palette ranging from brighter tones, the rich jewel tones, Indian or Moroccan-influenced colors to deeper, darker blacks and browns. Another constant is the use of skirts, although they are no longer the miniskirts of Season 1. Bergstrom believes that skirts give her that playful, girly image. Yet her clothing choices still retain that practical aspect necessary, at this point, to slaying, and significant of the fact that she bears few, if any, other responsibilities besides those attached to being the Slayer. While Buffy does not always patrol in fashionable attire, often preferring pants, a coat, and knit cap, she is rarely seen in completely unfashionable clothing. A notable exception is Helpless, Season 3, Episode 12, where Buffy, bereft of her powers on order of the Council, wears a slouchy shirt and overalls, less fashionable than Willow's typical look of this time period, to rescue her mother from the vampire Kralik during the Cruciamentum. Yet, in later seasons, Buffy is seen more and more patrolling in one might see as impractical clothing, white turtleneck sweaters, dress pants. Even in the Buffy Bought an Intervention, Season 5, Episode 18, gets into the act. She is initially costumed in a gauzy skirt and top and has to be asked by her friends to change into something more appropriate to the task of rescuing Spike from Glory. Buffy condescendingly refers to her as Skirt Girl. Buffy is still the Slayer, with all the physical duties such a calling entails, but she is also becoming an adult and learning about the disparity between the relatively simple world of slaying and the complexities of finances, jobs, raising a teenage sister, plus, in Season 7, counseling troubled teens and training an army to save the world. Buffy's sexual transgressiveness is also reflected in how she wears or does not wear clothing. We are staring at each other. What are you doing? You're being bad, aren't you? Get down. Get down. Butthead. Buffy's sexual transgressiveness is also reflected in how she wears or does not wear her clothing. Though she dresses in miniskirts and tight shirts, her look is attributed to be trendy, not trashy. Her sexuality in Season 1 is seen as more of an innocent teenage ideal. Even after she has sex with Angel, her clothing reflects little shift in her sexual presentation. She is able to clearly recognize the difference between fashionable clothing and slutwear. It is important that many of her early romantic encounters occur when she is not fashionably dressed, and her pajamas at the end of Halloween, Season 2, Episode 6, and Soaking Wet in Surprise, Season 2, Episode 13. The introduction of Faith in Season 3 provides a perfect foil for Buffy's look. From her first appearance in Faith, Hope, and Trick, Season 3, Episode 3, Faith is a heavily sexualized character, wearing suggestive clothing. Cordelia calls her slutorama, and exercising her sexuality as a weapon in the fight against the vampires and as protection against her own loneliness and outsider status. Her clinging shirts and leather pants mark her as different from Buffy and her friends, who dress in brighter colors and patterns. Buffy sports two particularly annoying coats through this phase, a pink one and a faux fur black and white spotted one. While Buffy goes to confront Faith in Graduation Day Part 1, Season 3, Episode 21, needing the other Slayer's blood to cure a poisoned angel, she dresses for the first time in an outfit reminiscent of Faith's, red leather pants and a black shirt. This outfit became the signature outfit for the season, appearing on the cover of the second volume of Watcher's Guide, emphasizing her shift into a more ambiguous ethical territory. Although earlier in Season 3 she had suffered remorse over the accidental death of the deputy mayor, Buffy has no compunction about killing Faith to get the blood she needs to save Angel. This shift in attitude, a move into the darkness that her character will struggle against for the next 4 seasons, takes its first shape in her clothing. Nowhere in this shift into darkness better reflected in fashion terms than in Buffy's affair with Spike. In Season 6, she has sex with Spike fully clothed in public places, such as an abandoned house, Smashed, Season 6, Episode 9, The Bronze, Dead Things, Season 6, Episode 13, Behind the Double Meat Palace, Season 6, Episode 12, or in her front yard, As You Were, Season 6, Episode 15. No wonder people freaking ship them together. Damn, these guys are getting it on. As opposed to her more traditional, naked, bed-oriented vanilla lovemaking with Angel, Parker, and Riley. Buffy's willingness to engage in sex fully clothed can be seen as a further indication not only of her clothing's adaptability, but also of how far into darkness and the monstrosity of vampire sex she has fallen. During their last confrontation of the season, Seeing Red, Season 6, Episode 19, Buffy is at her most vulnerable, emotionally, physically, and fashionably, clad only in a simple gray bathrobe. The robe's color itself indicates her slow climb back into the reality of her world and its proper view of Spike's place within it, sustained by her rebuff of Spike's advances. This time, no really does mean no, and his attempted rape. The character who makes the biggest transition over the course of the series is Willow, and much of her clothing reflects these changes. She starts out in Season 1 as the geek in Peter Pan collars, sweaters, with tights and overalls, looks that she maintains throughout the first 3 seasons. During her high school years, Willow is not a fashion trendsetter, dressing in clothes her mother buys for her. We first see her in a plain gray plaid jumper and tights, the aforementioned softer side of Sears, and Welcome to the Hellmouth. This is similar to the jumper that Willow will wear again in Restless, Season 4, Episode 22, when her deepest fear is publicly revealed by Buffy, no less, that she is still the same insecure geek she was in high school. In the fourth season, Willow goes about in cheerier colors with her tie-dyed shirts and broom skirts. As indicated in The Freshman, Season 4, Episode 1, college is Willow's mecca, a place for self-reinvention where her talents can fully shine, the spurty knowledge speech. Her full-blown relationship with Oz has caused her to blossom, with a trendy haircut and an end to her sweaters and skirts. The abrupt ending of the relationship causes a loss of confidence that throws her back into her high school perceptions of herself, even though she has changed on the outside. She is still believed to be an outsider, as former fellow student Percy indicates when he calls her a geek and doomed, Season 4, Episode 11. Her relationship with Tara, however, brings about a calming effect. Her focus on magic and on Tara gives her a confidence that transforms her clothes into her fashionable look. What once was geeky becomes, by season's end, her trend. As Willow's character changes over the 5th season, she develops the ability to offer commentary on how unfashionable her previous clothing has been. Nowhere in this ability more evidence than... God, there's like words missing. Then in The Body, Season 5, Episode 16. In her room with Tara, Willow is trying to decide what to wear to the hospital to sit with Buffy after Joyce's death. After vacillating back and forth between several choices, including a pink sweater with a ballerina on it, and searching in vain for her blue sweater, Joyce really liked the blue one, she told me one time. Willow finally loses it. Why do all of my shirts have to have stupid things on them? Why can't I just dress like a grown-up? She changes clothes 2 more times before leaving, finally settling on a fuzzy, darker pink turtleneck, a very grown-up outfit indeed. And the episode commentary, Whedon says that such behavior is indicative of the impact of grief. By focusing in on her clothing and its inability to provide the comfort or support she so desperately needs, Willow acknowledges the inability of material things to blunt the trauma of grief, just as Xander's punching of the wall a short time later reinforces the futility of action to do the same. Willow's clothing changes dramatically after this episode, as she takes on more of a leadership role within the Scoobies in care of Tara following Glory's mind suck. Her color palette shifts more to the darker hues that will follow her into the 6th season, and also reflects her growth, not only into addiction, but into adulthood and redemption in season 7. Fashion, however, is as much a way of hiding one's identity from the world as it is of announcing it. Therefore, not all aspects of a character's identity were necessarily expressed through the clothing he/she wore on a daily basis. Just say they. As Diana Crane notes, clothing as a form of nonverbal visual communication is a powerful means of making subversive social statements, because these statements are not necessarily constructed or received on a conscious, rational level. One way that the characters on the show were able to express hidden aspects of their personalities was through costuming, namely Halloween costumes. Buffy's Halloween costumes reflect the underside of her public, hip, trendy persona, namely the lack of stability she feels in her relationships with men. Both the 18th century gown from Halloween, season 2, episode 6, and the Little Red Riding Hood costume from Fear Itself, season 4, episode 4, gives insights into Buffy's insecurities in her role outside that of the Slayer. In Halloween, Buffy allowed her uncertainties about Angel to drive her choice of costume. Believing that Angel wants a woman like those he knew before he turned, she gravitates towards an 18th century dress in Ethan Rayne's shop. Her Little Red Riding Hood costume from Fear Itself signifies the void/forest she feels lost in following Parker's seduction and abandonment of her. The fact that she has no Halloween costume in season 6's All the Way, season 6, episode 6, is a further symptom of her lack of engagement with the world around her following her resurrection. Other characters also use Halloween costumes to point up hidden aspects of their makeup. Usually, Shy Willow reveals her innate sexuality in Halloween, season 2, episode 6, by dressing as a rocker babe in black leather miniskirt, belly shirt, choker, thigh-high boots, and makeup. But it covers it up with a standard ghost costume, reflecting her insecurities with her own sexual allure, and one may infer her later shift in sexual orientation in season 4, which she hides from her friends for most of the season. Xander's Soldier Boy, Halloween, and Secret Agent, Fear Itself, and Pirate, All the Way, all play on his insecurities about his ability to defend himself as the only powerless member of the Scoobies, and on his desire to be a full-fledged, take-charge fighter of evil and of his own life. Anya's Scary Bunny outfit and her unique angel costume are a further symbol of her inability to read traditional contemporary social codes. Giles' Halloween costumes, his Mexican costume from Fear Itself, and his wizard outfit from All the Way provide the audience with a glimpse of the underlying whimsy that the normally reserved, if not stodgy, Watcher displays, often making him appear to be more of a child than the Slayer in his care. The final look of BTVS's fashion aesthetics deals with deeper unconscious meanings, which Davis calls master statuses. These meanings consist of different combinations of apparel with their attendant qualities that are capable of registering sufficiently consistent meanings for wearers and their viewers. It is here that the show's fashion aesthetic truly enters the realm of the ambiguous and complex, due in part to the use of color in clothing choices. Certain colors, such as red, black, and white, carry special significances in American culture. White is the color of purity, black the color of evil or death, green the color of jealousy, and red the color of lust and sensuality. There's a little link that I'm not going to follow through on. Varying degrees of these colors, or of light and dark, provide an underlying text for audience members to incorporate into the reading of the show. For example, The X-Files' use of an almost exclusively monochromatic color palette both parodied the mundane color palette of the FBI and reinforced the sense of conspiracy, mystery, and foreboding that ran through the show's underlying story arc. The uses of black and white on BTVS often problematize the traditional interpretations of white as the color of innocence and black is the color of evil. Black is worn by many characters, both good and evil. Angel and Spike constantly wear black despite their transitions from evil to good to evil and back. Buffy often wears black for climatic battles, and Becoming Part 2, Season 2, Episode 22, she wears a black outfit for her final fight with Angelus before he is re-ensouled, as well as for her battle with Dark Willow in 2 to Go, Season 6, Episode 21. A notable exception to this is The Gift, Season 5, Episode 22, in which Buffy wears a cream-colored outfit more befitting the sacrifice she becomes at the episode's end, just as she wore the white spring fling gown when she died the first time in Prophecy Girl, Season 1, Episode 12. On the whole, however, Buffy does not merge well with light colors. Her waitress uniform in Anne, Season 3, Episode 1, her uniform in Double Meat Palace, Season 6, Episode 12, and the institutional clothes from Normal Again, Season 6, Episode 17, are all symbols of her inability to cope with her life, not her strength, which comes from her unique fashion aesthetic. Yet these are some of the lightest clothes that she wears over the course of the series, which calls into question the ability to continually ascribe lighter colors with positive significance. Tabula Rasa, Season 6, Episode 8, provides a good example of the ambiguous nature of black and white as symbolic colors. Buffy starts out patrolling in a white high-color sweater and tan coat, refusing Spike's advances following their kiss at the end of Once More with Feeling, Season 6, Episode 7. She changes to a white shirt with black leather coat before the scene in which she learns Giles is leaving. It is in this outfit with black and white contrast that she ends the show in a makeout session with Spike. Buffy's spiritual and moral ambiguity in Season 6 is further reflected in the fact that she is in black at the beginning and end of Season 6 as she crawls out of holes in the ground. And Becoming Part 2, Season 6, Episode 2, she comes out of the ground in a black dress. In Grave, Season 6, Episode 22, it is a black top and pants. The context of the crawl changes the aesthetic of the black she wears, even as it lends aesthetic symmetry to a dark season and signifies her long-awaited return to the light. One of the most significant black fashion accessories with multiple layers of significance is Spike's leather duster, which he took from Nikki Wood, the Slayer he killed in New York in 1977. The duster is a trendy piece, especially in light of the return of the duster in male fashion following the character of Neo in The Matrix. In the early seasons, the duster serves as a symbol of Spike's evil and prowess as a killer. It also serves to link him to Angel/Angelus. Spike is, ironically, the golden-haired dark mirror of Angel, a fact which Season 5 of Angel explores in more depth. As Spike becomes a more sympathetic character in Seasons 4 and 5, the duster begins to signify the complex redemptive process he follows, much as it does the fellow wool duster wearer Angel. The symbol of the duster as part of a vampire's redemptive journey is highlighted both by Riley, who refers to Angel as Mr. Billowy Coat King of Pain in the Yoko Factor, Season 4, Episode 20, and Spike himself in the Angel episode In the Dark, Angel, Season 1, Episode 3. Spike's jacket, black leather, also serves as a symbol of his masculinity, as it has for American culture since the days of James Dean and Elvis Presley. The Fonz on Happy Days was a parody of this jacket equals penis tradition. When the Fonz loses his jacket, he loses his ability to be cool. Spike loses his jacket when he loses control and tries to rape Buffy in Seeing Red, Season 6, Episode 19, when his desire overrides his reason. He goes off seeking his soul without his jacket. In Season 7, Spike remains dusterless throughout the first episodes as he adjusts to having a soul. A soul seems to be incompatible with the tradition symbolized by the duster. Then, in Get It Done, Season 7, Episode 15, after Buffy mocks his inability to fight, Spike returns to the Sunnydale High School basement to retrieve his coat before going to confront the demons sent by the Shadow Men. It is portrayed as an empowering moment. Once Spike dons the duster, he is able to defeat the demon that, previously, had thrown him through the ceiling of the Summers home. However, this moment is also the reintroduction of the duster as symbol of evil, for it marks him as Nikki Wood's killer to her son, Robin, and sets Robin back on his quest for revenge. Ultimately, the black duster and its wearer are redeemed through the cleansing yellow light that incinerates Spike, duster and all, and closes the Hellmouth for good. What a duster could possibly mean for a reconstituted ghost, I will avoid discussing due to length. Please, I want to know. The sixth season is... God, I need a drink. We're almost done. With this one, at least. The sixth season is, obviously, the darkest season of the show, and the color palette for the costumes reflect the show's shift to oppressive and obsessive topics. The overall color palette is very dark, with a lack of pastels as season progresses. White does appear from time to time, but it is only to reinforce the darkness into which characters have fallen. In Bargaining Part 1, Season 6, Episode 1, Willow goes about in a white dress with sweater, primarily to highlight the blood spatters that occur when she slaughters a fawn for the resurrection spell. Buffy wears white or white/black combinations during several of her encounters with Spike, including Tabula Rasa, Season 6, Episode 8. Both at the beginning in the graveyard and at the end when they are kissing at the bronze, and Dead Things, Season 6, Episode 13, when they have sex in the loft of the bronze. Other colors, however, work within the black/white spectrum to help further significations. Wassily Kandinsky believed that, generally speaking, color is a power which directly influences the soul. Color is the keyboard, the eyes are the hammers, the soul is the piano with many strings. It is ironic, then, that the most obvious use of color comes with music, the rainbow look, during Where Do We Go From Here at the end of Once More with Feeling, Season 6, Episode 7. As they sing, the characters stand in a line, each outfitted in a different color representing the rainbow. As Rhonda Wilcox has pointed out, the subtleties of the coding extend to contemporary color pairings between connected characters, such as Willow and Tara in purple and yellow, as well as the spectrum of emotions embodied in and motivated by certain colors, such as red, which can have multiple meanings according to shade. Color pairings vary according to the palette being used. Lighting color is different from painting color, and some painters, such as Kandinsky, had their own systems. But the vigorous energy of vibrant red/yellow colors contrasted with the cool internalization of blue/green oriented colors is somewhat constant. Willow's fall into dark magic in Season 6 is also reflected in her muted color palette. The vibrant reds, pinks, and blues that were still evident early in Season 5 are gone in favor of darker colors. As would be expected, she casts the resurrection spell in Bargaining Part 1, Season 6, Episode 1, wearing all black. From there on out, she is in either black or other dark colors until Seeing Red, Season 6, Episode 19, when she wears a white top, once again to be spattered by blood. Terrace. Her outfit in Dead Things, Season 6, Episode 13, black pants and a black high-color jacket, foreshadows the Dark Willow who will appear in Villains, Season 6, Episode 20, even as she brags to Tara of being on the road to recovery. The Dark Willow outfit is a masterpiece of character significations and deeper master symbols. The black high-collar jacket, which appears blue in the moonlight of the park where she flays Warren, and pants, reminiscent of the costume worn by the Master in Season 1, but with more frills, are initially set off with white cuffs, but by the beginning of Go to 2, Season 6, Episode 21, she is all black from head to toe, literally. Willow not only wears black, she becomes black. Scary, veiny Willow, as Xander calls her, with her black eyes and hair, makes a strong visual statement. Some critics say overstatement of how far she had fallen from the stupid mousy girl who packed her own lunches and wore floods. 2 to Go, Season 6, Episode 21. The appearance of Dark Willow with her black clothes and pale skin also harkens back to Vamp Willow from The Wish, Season 3, Episode 9. and Doppelgangland, Season 3, Episode 16. However, as befits her status as vampire, not dark witch, Vamp Willow's contrasting colors were red. High contrast red hair, more so than usual, red lipstick, red shirt under her bustier. Vamp Willow's evil came from the demon residing within her physical shell, a demon that could alter her appearance as needed by going all bumpy-faced, but otherwise could appear normal-looking. At least normal enough to fool Xander, Oz, Angel, and Cordelia in Doppelgangland. Dark Willow's evil comes from the magic she absorbed literally through her skin. Its effects cause a complete shift in her look, head to toe, to reflect the totality of the change. Dark Willow literally becomes black magic, the aesthetic pinnacle of black equals evil significations. In the end, BTVS's fashion aesthetic reflects the same complex universe as other aspects of the show previously examined by scholars. Issues of gender empowerment, sexual identity and agency, good and evil, reality and fantasy are all reinforced by the characters' clothing and their commentary on fashion, their own and that of others. By foregrounding the importance of fashion, yet allowing shifts in the fashion aesthetic to occur naturally as part of a character's development, the writers, producers, and costume designers of BTVS create a fashion aesthetic that embraces contemporary looks, yet contains enough timeless elements and underlying significations to be easily read long after those looks are, as Buffy would say, carbon dated. I love fashion, so we could all just watch Hot La Mode when I'm done streaming, or have it on in the background as he talks about whatever. Okay, bibliography. Fashion and its social agendas, class, gender, and identity in clothing. Fashion, culture, and identity, the fashioned body, fashion dress, and modern social theory. The warrior women of television. A feminist cultural analysis of the new female body in popular media. Sex and the Slayer, a gender studies primer for the Buffy fan. Concerning the spiritual and art. The aesthetics of culture in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Constructions of Faith, the Vampire Slayer. Why Buffy Matters, the art of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. God, I love this. Ooh, we have little notes. Fashion aesthetics also help differentiate white hats from the big bad of a given season. Perhaps the greatest fashion maven, or victim, depending upon whom you ask, after Cordelia is 5th season's Glory, the malevolent, ditzy god from the Hell dimension. Glory is almost as obsessed with clothes and shoes as she is with finding the key that will get her home and destroy the world in the process. Glory's wardrobe has a vibrant color palette, deep reds, stark blacks, patterns, even a bit of gold lame. Glory's choices of short, clingy dresses and satins and other non-cotton fabrics, because cotton is so pedestrian, Blood Ties Season 5, Episode 13, are daring fashion choices, even in the Buffyverse, and they are cast as inherently trashy and inappropriate. She is called skanky and a fashion victim, among other terms, and her constant focus on wardrobe is seen as evident of her insanity and evil nature. Glory's piece of fashion irony is that the least trendy piece of clothing she wears is the robe of the ceremony that will get her home. Is the robe for the ceremony that will get her home. I loved Glory. She was such a fun character. I really love the fashion in the show, honestly. Like, I used to be so inspired by the whole 90s of the early seasons of Buffy. Like, you know, because I was a child when it came out, so I grew up, like, seeing her and thinking she was so cool and wanting to look exactly like her. And then I grew up and I'm like, oh boy. I'm not wearing that. But it holds a special place in my heart, honestly. And again, I really liked Glory. I thought she was so pretty, and I loved all of her clothes, even if they kept calling her trashy. I thought she was so cool. What else? What other note can I read? Also, it is not necessary for a character to look evil to be evil. Harmony's wardrobe, when she turns, often belies her newfound status. She dresses in neat blazers and other clothing that belies her attempts to be evil. A discontinuity further explored on Angel and Disharmony, and in 5th season during her employment at Wolfram and Hart. For example, Kadinsky believed that yellow and blue have another movement which affects the first antithesis. Oh my god, I don't want to read this. I'm already stumbling. Okay, we finished that one. I am going to go mute myself so I can get a drink, so I can drink and then continue, and we will read another one, but probably I'll open one of the like 5-pagers or something, because we don't need another half an hour of me reading. We'll find a shorter one. Okay, I will be right back, you guys. Stay here. Maybe Medusa will run by while I'm getting my drink. Luckily, I thought through this earlier and tried to organize them by length. Should I do a 6 through 10 page one or 1 through 5? Fuck it, let's do like a 6 through 10. Oh god, Buffy Foucault and the Quest for Self. This is gonna be hard to read. I hope you want to stay to watch me suffer. Oh no, realizing they probably all ended with notes, which of course they did if they're nonfiction. Should I go back and read the notes from the first one? Let's see. Let's see here if it is anything interesting to say. Okay, you go away. Let me scroll down. Nah, there's no real notes. Just being indebted, which is why I didn't read it. All right, I remember that. Okay. We're gonna finish off with a 9-pager, but hopefully it's only like 8 pages. Okay. Julie Sloan Brannon. Hold on, let me move some shit for me. Put that back up. Put that down. Oh god, where did the page with the actual... Okay. Julie Sloan Brannon. It's about power. Buffy, Foucault, and the Quest for Self. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. It's about power. With these words, the final season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer began, and with these words defined the central premise of the entire show. Joss Whedon... Okay, I need to make this a little bigger. The text is smaller. Which is going to move this a little. It's about there. Okay. Move this back. Ah! Too much clicking! With these words, the final season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer began, and with these words defined the central premise of the entire show. Joss Whedon, creator of the Buffyverse, has consistently maintained that Buffy was a feminist revision of the horror genre, in which the little blonde girl was always the victim. There is no denying that aspect of the program, which appealed to thousands of viewers of both genders. What I find fascinating, though, is how much the show reflects a Foucaultian understanding of social discourses and subject formation through manipulating the classic hero quest. Campbell's famous formulation has been applied to Buffy before, so I won't tread over stale ground here. Saving the world, as Hinton points out, has never really been the heart of Buffy's quest. Rather, it is her quest for selfhood, to understand the power she's got and how to use it, that has formed the central journey for Buffy. Campbell's formula is based on a psychological model, heavily Jungian, that presupposes a humanist concept of individualism, and most examinations of the quest aspect of the show have followed in that vein as well. What I propose, in contrast, is a quest model based on a Foucauldian understanding of power structures and the modes of subjectification. The mythology of the Slayer tells us that her power has been forced upon her and her alone. What Buffy achieves through her quest to define herself is to alter the very nature of that power structure and create what is, in Foucauldian terms, an event in power formation. In the final episode, Chosen... Oh, God, okay. In the final episode, Chosen, Season 7, Episode 22. I feel proud of myself for being able to say these so fast. Xander says, "We saved the world," to which Willow replies, "We changed the world." This exchange underscores the nature of the boon that Buffy bestowed from her quest. Power as shared phenomenon rather than power concentrated and controlled. In this way, Buffy defeats the enemy she's fought for 7 years, an isolation enforced by a patriarchal structure that feared the power which it bestowed. 5 episodes in particular stand out in exploring this aspect of the Slayer's journey. Season 3's Graduation Day Part 1, Episode 21. Season 5's Checkpoint, Episode 12. And Season 7's Lessons, Episode 1. Get It Done, 15. And Chosen, Episode 22. Season story arcs are consistently set up 2 years in advance on Buffy. For example, Dawn's appearance in Season 5 was telegraphed in Seasons 3 and 4 through a dream dialogue between Buffy and Faith. Graduation Day Part 2, Episode 22, and this year's Girl, Season 4, Episode 15, respectively. True to form, Season 7's theme of power was telegraphed 2 seasons in advance in Checkpoint. I do wonder, actually, completely interrupting myself, I do wonder how much of it is telegraphed and how much of it was just planting seeds just in case they went that way. But that's for somebody else to interrogate, I guess. True to form, Season 7's theme of power was telegraphed 2 years in advance in Checkpoint, Season 5, Episode 12. In this episode, the Watchers Council, previously rejected by Buffy and Giles in favor of working on their own in Season 3, returns to Sunnydale ostensibly to convey information on that season's big bad, Glory. But before they are willing to share their knowledge, they require Buffy to undergo a review of her methods. As the controlling bureaucratic state for the Slayers, the Watchers Council has proven that, to them, the Slayers are merely tools that must be honed and wielded. If a tool breaks, they merely get a new one. In this way, the power dynamic of the state and the individual acquires the specific overtones of the patriarchal state and the individual woman through the council/Slayer relationship. Buffy rejects this structure in favor of her own value system, which places the individual above the state regardless of gender. In Graduation Day Part 1, Season 3, Episode 21, as Angel lies near death from a vampire-specific poison, the following exchange illustrates Buffy's rejection of the Watchers Council, : Wesley, they couldn't help. Buffy couldn't? Wesley wouldn't. It's not council policy to cure vampires. Giles, oh God. Giles, did you explain that these were special circumstances? Wesley, not under any circumstances. And yes, I did try to convince them. Buffy, try again. Wesley, Buffy, they're very firm. We're talking about laws that have existed longer than civilization. Buffy, I'm talking about watching my lover die. I don't have a clue what you're talking about, and I don't care. Wesley, the council's orders are to concentrate on Buffy. Orders? I don't think I'm going to be taking any more orders. Not from you, not from them. Wesley, go back to your council and tell them until the next Slayer comes along they can close up shop. I'm not working for them anymore. Wesley, this is mutiny. Buffy, long pause. I like to think of it as graduation. The council's bureaucratic inability to appreciate individual worth puts it at odds with Buffy's understanding of the value of her support system. Earlier in the season, Wesley showed a willingness to sacrifice Buffy's best friend Willow in order to focus on the greater threat of the mayor. Risking individual lives for an abstract goal is the council's modus operandi, right down to the creation of the first Slayer, as Get It Done, Season 7, Episode 15 attests. For Buffy, it is her relationships that have enabled her to survive longer than any other Slayer that we know of. A point driven home in Season 4's climatic battle in which the Scoobies combined their essences into a super Buffy that was able to magically stop Adam. The council is unnecessary for Buffy to do her job until Season 5 confronts her with Glory. The council, however, punishes Buffy for her transgression in asserting her independence. Good God, I need to go slower. As they showed in Season 3's Helpless, Season 3, Episode 12, their control exists in the form of scientific tests, experiments, and data gathering. And they continue this methodology in Checkpoint, Season 5, Episode 12, through physical tests and interviews of her friends. These methods exemplify Foucault's definition of discipline in relation to the body. Discipline increases the forces of the body in economic terms of utility and diminishes these same forces in political terms of obedience. In short, it dissociates power from the body. On the one hand, it turns it into an aptitude or a capacity which it seeks to increase. On the other hand, it reverses the course of the energy, the power that must result from it, and turns it into a relation of strict subjection. Docile bodies. That's a citation I didn't need to read. For the council, it is vital to reinstate its control over the Slayer and her power, and her desperation for knowledge allows them a way to do just that. The council is a perfect stand-in for a state power in the Foucauldian sense. It is a surveilling body, using discipline to contain the power it can never quite grasp completely. The first Slayer was chosen and demonic power infused into her by a tribunal of men, the First Watchers Council. This power has then been passed down from chosen one to chosen one, always under the panoptic eye of her watchers. The gendering of this relationship is not incidental to the show's themes, but I would suggest that to essentialize the structure as patriarchy bad patriarchy is reductivist. Season 7 reminds us that it's about power, not just girl power, a troublingly conflicted term that restricts and clouds real issues of gender power dynamics. In End of Days, we find out that there is a female group that names itself the Guardians that has stood behind the Watchers Council and, unbeknownst to them, has held back a weapon for the Slayer to use before the end. Their knowledge of its eventual need, that the patriarchal Watchers would in the end fail, adds an interesting layer to the gender dynamics of the show. The first glimmering of this final triumph of the Slayer's own power over that of the Watchers Council comes in Checkpoint, Season 5, Episode 12, during the climatic scene between Buffy and Quentin Travers, head of the council. Buffy has spent the entire episode feeling helpless and humiliated by various situations. Her professor ridicules her in history class. Glory waltzes into her home and threatens her. The council threatens Giles with deportation if Buffy doesn't cooperate with their review. And when she is already late for her final test by the council, she's attacked by the Knights of Byzantium, a Templars-like order bent on destroying the key and whoever gets in their way. During this final confrontation, she apparently has an epiphany about her current situation, as so often on the show, exemplified through the physical defeat of an enemy, and she enters the magic box ready to redefine the parameters of her relationship with the council. Travers, we can begin the review at last. We'll skip the more obvious questions. Buffy, putting sword down on his papers. There isn't going to be a review. Travers, sorry? Buffy, no review. No interrogation. No questions you know I can't answer. No hoops. No jumps. Nigel starts to speak. And no interruptions. Looking at Nigel, who quiets. Pacing. See, I've had a lot of people talking at me the last few days. Everyone just lining up to tell me how unimportant I am. And I finally figured out why. Looks Travers in the eye. Power. I have it. They don't. And this bothers them. Buffy, you guys didn't come all the way from England to determine whether or not I was good enough to be let back in. You came to beg me to let you back in, to give your jobs, your lives, some semblance of meaning. Nigel, this is beyond insolence. Buffy flings sword in one move at him. It misses his head and sticks into wall. Buffy, I'm fairly certain I said no interruptions. Buffy, you're watchers. Without a Slayer, you're pretty much just watching masterpiece theater. You can't stop Glory. You can't do anything with the information you have except maybe publish it in the Everyone Thinks We're Insano's home journal. So here's how it's gonna work. You're gonna tell me everything you know, then you're gonna go away. You'll contact me if and when you have any further information about Glory. The magic shop will remain open. Mr. Giles will stay here as my official watcher, reinstated at full salary. Giles coughing into hand. Retroactive. To be paid retroactively from the month he was fired. I will continue my work with the help of my friends. Lydia, I don't want a sword thrown at me, but civilians, we're talking about children here. Buffy, we're talking about 2 very powerful witches and a 1,000-year-old ex-demon. Philip, the boy, no power there. Buffy, the boy, has clocked in more field time than all of you combined. He's part of the unit. Buffy, now, you all may be very good at your jobs. The only way we're gonna find out is if you work with me. You can all take your time thinking about that, but I want an answer right now from Quentin, because I think he's understanding me. Momentary silence. Travers, your terms are acceptable. Speaking truth to power, Buffy effectively negates the Council's methods of control over her by reminding them that it is only through her mission that they have a purpose. She also effectively silences their attempts at reinstating their superiority, Nigel's indignation at her insolence, and Lydia's naming of Xander, Willow, and the rest as children. Through a combination of renaming 2 powerful witches, reminding the Council of their lack of real involvement or experience, Xander's field time, which is more than all of the Council combined, and sword flinging, thus underscoring her own power. Her willingness to concede that the Council may be very good at their jobs shows that she is not interested in simply inverting their paradigm, in which one side must dominate and control the other, but in finding a new way to cooperatively work for a common cause. Already we see a glimmering of the plan which will come to fruition in Season 7's Chosen, Season 7, Episode 22. Buffy's triumph here allows us to examine her quest for self under a Foucauldian rubric. For Foucault, the aim of his work was to create a history of the different modes by which, in our culture, human beings are made subjects. The Council's methods fall under a mode Foucault called dividing practices, : Essentially, they are modes of manipulation that combine the mediation of a science or pseudoscience and the practice of exclusion, usually in a spatial sense, but always in a social one. These practices include the objectification of individuals drawn first from a rather undifferentiated mass, and later from more highly pre-selected populations, the interconnections of dividing practices with the formation and increasingly sophisticated elaboration of the social sciences, the historical relationship of these modes of classification, control, and containment to a distinctive tradition of humanitarian rhetoric on reform and progress, the increasingly efficient and diverse applications of these combined procedures of power and knowledge mainly, although not exclusively, to dominated groups, or to groups form and given an identity through the dividing practices. End of quote. My bad. I should have said begin quote. That was a block of text. Chosen at first from an undifferentiated mass of women, and slowly over time pre-selected from adolescent girls, the Slayer is given her identity through training and application of arcane knowledge by her Watcher, as part of a credo of the greater good, and the Watcher's Council became, over time, an increasingly sophisticated bureaucracy dedicated only to one thing: watching over the Slayer, using her to stop the demons, a further group given identity through the Watchers as evil, even though the show consistently complicates such a definition. The social isolation of the Slayer, even alienating her own family, is part of the dividing practice of the Council. This practice is exemplified by Nikki Woods, the Slayer killed by Spike, who we see in Lies My Parents Told Me, Season 7, Episode 17, tell her own son, "The mission is what matters." Robin Woods is left to confront the legacy of that rejection when he tries to revenge himself on Spike, the vampire who killed his mother. Spike explains to Woods that he knows Slayers. No matter how many people they've got around them, they fight alone. Life of the chosen one. The rest of us be damned. Your mother was no different. When Woods plaintively tells Spike that his mother was different, that she loved him, Spike replies, "But not enough to quit, though, was it?" Nikki, unlike Buffy, conforms to the Council's mode of defining who she is. The Slayer's isolation, Her dedication to the mission rather than having a life has been the central struggle Buffy faced throughout the show. Early seasons explored her struggle to be a normal girl even though she had a most abnormal calling, and it was her tie to that world that made her unique among Slayers. This struggle falls under Foucault's mode of subjectification, which, quote, concerns the way a human being turns him or herself into a subject, unquote, and is defined as, quote, those processes of self-formation in which the person is active, unquote. Buffy's search for self, particularly for her mentor Giles as a guide, conforms neatly to Foucault's formulation that these, quote, operations characteristically entail a process of self-understanding, but one which is mediated by an external authority figure, be he confessor or psychoanalyst, unquote. And rejecting the dividing practices of the council, both Buffy and Giles enable her to embark on her own exploration of what it means to be not just a Slayer, but Buffy the Slayer. At the end of season 5, when she realizes that death is her gift, she believes that she has fulfilled her quest and realized her purpose in life when she sacrifices herself to save Dawn and the world. Her mission and her personal needs converged, and she was able to meet both obligations. Her death has always been preordained as a Slayer. One must die before another is called. But in this instance, she died in a way that was her own choice and dictated on her own terms. Not just some random lucky vamp or demon taking her out, but a full-blown affirmation of her selfhood. But as we know, the quest requires a return. And so Buffy comes back from the dead through the offices of Willow's magic, and all of season 6 can be seen as the refusal of return that is part of Campbell's formula. Buffy cannot bestow any boon on humankind because she is not able to cope with being pulled from heaven. Her depression, the breakdown of her support system, in the guise of Willow's addiction, Giles' departure, Xander and Anya's relationship crumbling at the altar, her mutually abusive sexual relationship with Spike. All of these elements contribute to her inability to dispatch what would seem to be the most bumbling of all her prior foes, the nerd trio. Each of the Scoobies becomes isolated in their own problems, and the support network is gone. The ultimate resolution of season 6 does not even require Buffy's presence, as it is Xander who stops Dark Willow from destroying the world. The final lesson we learn from season 6's finale is that only through connecting again can the power of the Slayer be fully realized. Xander defeats Willow through unconditional love, and Buffy is able to shake off her depression and a resolution by connecting again with the world around her, Dawn in particular. The first step towards Buffy's radical alteration of the nature of Slayer power was taken here. Although season 6 was not, by and large, a fan favorite, the crucial moment of Buffy's answer to the call of return occurs during this season, and the elements of connectivity and power are highlighted in preparation for the final season. And so we go back to the beginning. Season 7 brings to fruition the lessons that Buffy learned throughout the earlier seasons, and ultimately she uses that knowledge to alter the Slayer heritage. The early part of the season shows us, though, that she was drawing the wrong conclusions about power and its nature. She, in essence, becomes a stand-in for the Watchers Council by embracing their dividing practices. In training Dawn, as we see at the beginning of Lessons, Season 7, Episode 1, she merely imitates the methodology of the Council. She chooses one young woman, Dawn, and bestows upon her the knowledge and training of a Slayer. Buffy, it's about power. Who's got it? Who knows how to use it? So, tosses a stake at Dawn. Who's got the power, Dawn? Dawn, well, I've got the stake. Buffy, the stake is not the power. Dawn, but he's new. He doesn't know his strength. He might not know all those fancy martial arts skills we inevitably seem to pick up. Buffy, who's got the power? Dawn, he does. Buffy, never forget it. Doesn't matter how well prepped you are or how well armed you are. You're a little girl. Dawn, woman. Buffy, little woman. Dawn, I'm taller than you. Buffy, he's a vampire, okay? Demon, perpetually strong, skilled with powers no human could possibly ever Vampire. Excuse me, I think I'm stuck. Buffy. You're stuck? Vampire. My foot's caught on a root or something, and I don't even know how I got down there. If you girls could just give me a hand. Dawn. So he's got the power? Buffy. Zip it. Through comical inversion, this scene actually illustrates the complete instability of the council's methods and ideology. As Buffy tells Dawn, "You're a little girl," she echoes the repressive patriarchal discourse of the council, and when that discourse is shown to be false through the vampire's need for the girl's assistance, perhaps indicating that patriarchy itself needs the assistance of women's participation to continue, several watchers are women after all, Buffy can only react by silencing Dawn. In this way, she embodies the council's methodologies, and their often pompous annotations, and the larger patriarchal discourse which gives it ascendancy. The fact that this scene disrupts that discourse foreshadows the way Buffy herself will disrupt that same discourse in realizing the end of her quest. As the season progresses and she is given more responsibility in the form of the potentials, she becomes ever more rigid and almost self-periodic in her St. Crispin's Day speechifying. For Buffy, it's about controlling her power and being a leader, a chosen one. In Lies My Parents Told Me, Season 7, Episode 17, she echoes Nikki Wood's council-inspired mantra, "The mission is what matters." During this episode, Giles conspires with Robin Woods and manipulates Buffy to keep her away while Robin attempts to kill Spike. He, in effect, isolates Buffy much like the Watchers Council. Giles can only see William the Bloody and brushes aside Buffy's repeated protestations that she needs Spike. He thinks it's an emotional need and doesn't realize that she needs Spike as a tool. She isn't blind to the danger. She's just willing to risk it because Spike is strong enough to help her fight. She's buying into the greater good philosophy, as she tells Giles that now she would let Dawn die to save the world. By the end of that episode, Buffy has become isolated completely because she believes that her power is by necessity one that can only be wielded successfully by herself. Both Giles and Buffy use dividing practices, control, manipulation, exclusion, and echoing the council's methods ultimately brings them almost to the brink of disaster. Again, the show underscores that the Slayer's power must be understood in a dynamic other than that of the disciplining force and the object of discipline. Oh God, quote. Big quote. Not only did the monarchies of the classical period develop great state apparatuses, but above all, there was established in the period what one might call a new economy of power. Procedures which allowed the effects of power to circulate in a manner at once continuous, uninterrupted, adapted, and individualized throughout the entire social body. These new techniques are both much more efficient and much less wasteful, less risky in their results than the techniques previously employed, which were based on a mixture of more or less forced tolerances, the costly ostentation, spectacular and discontinuous interventions of power. Big unquote. Finish that quote. Okay. Buffy's reformulation of the Slayer heritage into one that is continuous, adapted, and individualized throughout all potential Slayers, and by extension, metaphorically, to every woman, exactly reproduces the shift Foucault outlines in Discipline and Punish. Spreading the Slayer power to all potentials makes that power less easily controlled, and the possibility of rogue Slayers like Faith is very real. But as Buffy points out, the choice now belongs to the potentials rather than the council. Buffy. What if we could have that power now? In every generation, one Slayer is born because a bunch of men who died thousands of years ago made up that rule. They were powerful men. This woman, points to Willow, is more powerful than all of them combined. So I say we change the rule. I say my power should be our power. From now on, every girl in the world who might be a Slayer will be a Slayer. Every girl who could have the power will have the power, can stand up, will stand up. Slayers, every one of us, make your choice. Are you ready to be strong? With her final speech as a general, Buffy makes it plain that patriarchal structures dictating the power dynamics of the Slayer heritage are only in place because countless generations have believed that only one could wield the power at a time. Buffy offers another way, one that she has learned over and over again is the only way to be strong, to share the power to rely on others. The lessons learned from her journey are that connectivity is strength, that shared power is increased, not diluted. Hinting at this truth, Willow reveals at the beginning of Lessons, Season 7, Episode 1, you've been gone for a while, that everyone's connected. By the end of Chosen, Season 7, Episode 22, Buffy has enabled a change from the prior state created by the Council, one of fundamental reference. Oh god, so long. Okay. Quote. By the end of Chosen, Season 7, Episode 22, Buffy has enabled a change from the prior state created by the Council, one of, quote, fundamental reference, not to the state of nature, but to the meticulously subordinated cogs of a machine, not to the primal social contract, but to permanent coercions, not to fundamental rights, but to indefinitely progressive forms of training, not to the general will, but to atomic docility, unquote. Foucault here is describing an alternative view of utopia provided by militarist thinkers of the 18th century, but he could very well be describing the workings of the Watchers' Council, with slayers as the cogs, permanently coerced into sacrifice through training and demanding atomic docility. It was never clear how a la Kendra in Season 2. That was just another citation to ignore. It was never clear how the Slayer power was transferred from one girl to the next, what role Council may or may not have played in that transfer, nor how or why a particular girl was chosen. But Buffy's radical reordering of that dynamic now makes those questions moot, and enables her to reach what Campbell called the freedom to live stage of her own quest. For Buffy, she can now be master of two worlds, the Slayer and that of the normal girl, because it is no longer necessary for her to die before another Slayer can be called. Her destiny is no longer foreordained. The closing scene of Chosen illustrates the final moment of Buffy's quest to realize her own full potential as an active subject. Willow. The first is scrunched, so what do you think we should do, Buffy? Faith, yeah, you're not the one and only Chosen anymore. Just gotta live like a person. How's that feel? Dawn, yeah, Buffy, what are we gonna do now? Buffy smiles. Cut. Cutting the scene here re-emphasizes that Buffy's choices are now open to anything. Giles has revealed that there is another Hellmouth in Cleveland, so we know that she can continue her role as a Slayer. But because she has actively altered the power dynamic which gives that role its meaning, she has reached a subjectification at the same time she has bestowed the boon on womankind. She can choose not to be a Slayer and instead be another kind of cookie. Buffy's shifting of the power dynamic made all potential Slayers special and chosen. Metaphorically, by extension, all women are revealed to have the potential for agency. It really is about power, who's got it, and who knows how to use it. In exploring the nature of self, Buffy also offers a different model for gendered power dynamics. Foucault much. Notes. Rhonda Wilcox in Why Buffy Matters, The Art of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, discusses this exchange in terms of political and economic globalization. Her analysis is insightful, although it does not necessarily connect globalization to any theoretical model. If we view both Buffy and real-world globalization through a Foucaultian lens, though, both are events in the shifting of power structures. Buffy's reordering of power, however, is a less diffuse event than the ongoing shift of political and economic power occurring in global markets. I didn't need to read this note. In addition, Buffy's global sharing is meant to be seen in the context of the show as a true diffusion of power to be used independently by its recipients. Make your choice, Buffy tells the potentials in Chosen, Season 7, Episode 22, whereas the globalization of particularly Western capitalist models are not consistently greeted with enthusiasm, a point Wilcox also makes. There's a big one here. James South makes an interesting suggestion that perhaps at this point in Season 7, Buffy was perhaps the real big bad. South argues that Plato's parable of the cave allows us to understand Buffy's position here. The cave, the Slayer mythology, keeps everyone trapped by a teleological principle, for the sake of which everything is done, no matter how distorted. This principle is the chosen one mantra and the notion that the mission is what matters. Lies my parents told me, season 7, episode 17. His focus runs somewhat parallel to my own in that only through a reconfiguration of options can Buffy find freedom from the trap of the Slayer heritage. His discussion is grounded in Plato rather than Foucault, however, it does not address the particularly feminist aspect of that reconfiguration. Cool. Okay. That's probably the last one. I don't know why I said probably. That's the last one I'm going to read tonight. Time Medusa. This is a change in formats, but just a fun little one, you know, between books. I have another book already lined up that I don't remember the name of and is not near me. But it's a 15 short story book with 15 short stories in them. Why did I say it like that? I think it's like women, the vampires are women, but the stories aren't written by women. I'm not going for necessarily a gendered theme here. I just bought it because it was at the used bookstore and I needed a book to read. But I'll start that reading probably not next week. I have at least one more idea of something I wanted to do between books. I wouldn't mind doing a little more of these readings if this video happens to be popular or just because I feel like it. I can't believe any of you could possibly have made it to the end of this video. That's insane. This is way too like niche for anybody else but me. And the people who wrote it, I guess, huge nerds about I'm not even like a huge nerd of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm just like a huge nerd and I like to analyze things in a literary way. It's fun. My point is, I can't believe if you made it all the way here. That's insane. Thank you. I do these streams on Sunday at 6 Eastern Standard Time. I will be here next week. Knock on wood, nothing goes wrong. Here's my cat. Isn't she cute? Okay. I'll see you again next week. Thank you for being here once again. Holy shit. Okay. Bye.